We're going to go over why this is the single biggest chart for Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies and what it means for the upcoming moves. We're going to talk about this section right here, where we are in the scheme of things, and it's very positive news, very positive news. Also, we're going to talk about a big move that just occurred with the G20. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is a chart that I think I've talked about in the past. It is the US dollar index versus Bitcoin. And the dollar has gone up and down, but generally Bitcoin has gone up. And what we've begun to see, especially really starting here, is that the dollar was trending down and Bitcoin was going up dramatically. And what we've got today, just so you are aware of it, is that the dollar has dropped significantly today. If we look at the dollar index, okay, we've got a pretty sizable chop. We were above 90.2, something like that. And my thesis has been that the dollar is on the way down. Period. Put a fork in it. Unless there's a dramatic shift to the way the federal government is funding itself and the amount of debt being set up, etc., or the Federal Reserve significantly ramps up interest rates and does a bunch of other things that they're kind of unlikely to do. The dollar's headed down, even though it's been bouncing up and down a little bit. That bodes very well for Bitcoin based on this chart, because we're in this range here. We're talking about 110, 120 down to in the 90 range. Now we're going to be looking at 80 range. That's where the dollar's headed. 80, maybe even lower. 80 has been kind of a line in the sand, but it could even go lower on the dollar index, and that would put Bitcoin way, way up here. On a daily basis, well, actually we're on a monthly basis. Let's do a daily basis. On a daily basis, Bitcoin is still in the oversold territory and beginning to recapture from the oversold conditions, bouncing up somewhat. It's had an okay bounce from the 7,500 range on up. But on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, let's go back here, we could still go down further. We still have aggressive selling force in place. However, we're beginning to see oversold conditions even on a monthly basis. Now, normally what's going to happen is you're going to bounce significantly lower here. Like we got a fairly big reversal in this line. But we're going to, we would probably get down to the 6,500 range. Keep in mind that this was before even down as low as 4,000. Now we're up in the 6,500 range. So the lower bound from here is becoming limited, while the upper bound is still, the upper bound is probably in the 13 to 14 range, because Bitcoin tends to overshoot on the upper bound and not overshoot on the lower bound, which is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So the monthly is shaping up quite nice. On a weekly basis, we're still in the boat that we've been for a while, which is what I've been talking about, that we would get to this CCI oversold. CCI is a beautiful indicator, especially when you match it with the RSI. EFI is a little bit on the lag with that, so I go with CCI first. And once we, now the lower bound is 5 to 6, but whereas before the lower bound was in the 4 range. So this is great news. Our lower limit from here is not that much further down, and we've had an up bound. So what all this means is that we have entered currently a very sound buy-in point. You could see it go further down, and in fact I would suggest that the possibility is definitely there for it to go further down, but not cutting it in half down to 4 or 3, but maybe in the 6-ish range or 7 range. But the upside is still up in the 14. I said 14 around April. That trade still holds. It's behaving absolutely beautifully with a nice reversal. So why did we get the reversal? Well, the G20 met, and let's take a look at that news item right here. I think it's still posted on Cointelegraph. After Carney tells G20 crypto does not pose a risk, which is kind of a shock. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the G20 will not take action, but it's one of the things. For instance, Japan, and we want to talk about Mastercard here. Japan said we want to make sure that the G20 takes a bad stance against cryptocurrency. So there's a bit of a seesaw going. Now, I want to talk about this and just put it out in the community. We need to work around Mastercard and Visa, because once we work around Mastercard and Visa and somehow or another set up options that allow us to spend crypto or in the real world, the bankers are done. That's the end of it. The bankers are cooked for the most part. I mean, it won't happen immediately, but it's the trend. So what do we basically need? We need food, energy, shelter, maybe some entertainment, maybe a bit of healthcare. If on a low level we can start out with those, we can build up to all the other things that you can buy with cryptocurrencies, and that has to happen. And anyone want to start businesses in that regard, that's where we've got to go. I know I'm working in that direction. So this is coinpicker.us. I just want to go over again. This chart right here says that Bitcoin has a very, very bright future based on the trend against the dollar. And the dollar, as we can see right here, is showing downward momentum significantly. I mean, let's see what gold is doing. Gold is showing some upward momentum, as is silver. So gold was originally the analogy for Bitcoin, and that's what's happening today. Dollar down, gold and Bitcoin up. Dollar is going to continue to go down unless there's some dramatic shifts, which I don't see coming from the Federal Reserve and from the United States government. That portends very well for Bitcoin, which is what these charts also say. The charts suggest we have a limited downside, and massive upside. So probably minimum of 1.5x to the upside, more like 1.65x, and to the downside, maximum somewhere in the neighborhood of 33%. That's the maximum. So 1.6x on the up, 0.33 on the down. That's huge. That's the kind of trade I like, and I will be updating this fairly shortly. And happy trading to all of you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.